in India, then what's wrong with that, Dr. Anshula Vijay?
No, I think, Zaka, you're completely missing the point. The point is that the BJP spares no occasion, no event, no bipartisan government event to promote the Prime Minister or the BJP itself. Firstly, I mean, unquestionably, the logo of the G20 is the BJP logo. I mean, without any doubt about it. I mean, the national flower is pink, it's not saffron. Secondly, the Prime Minister opened the
The
doors
national
to
flower
critique
is the
himself.
lotus. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't think
the
I
lotus.
don't think
Yeah, it's
it's
pink, right?
immaterial what
It's not
color it is,
saffron.
isn't it? I mean, the lotus is the national flower. It's not just a party flower. But anyway, go
Yeah,
on. Make your
that,
point. Go on.
no,
Yeah.
no, hang on. This is unquestionably the BJP logo. You set the grounds for politicization. Everything is drenched in politics before it is served by the BJP.
Okay, go
That is
on.
the problem. And I'll tell you how. Allow me to finish, Zaka.
Hmm.
The Prime Minister himself opened the doors to critique when in Bali he turned all his speech into an election speech. I mean, while critiquing, deriding the opposition in that mocking kind of way, all the bombast that he said, he opened the doors for it. So every occasion, if that is an election speech, we have no problem. You critique
No,
the opposition
Dr.
as
Avijit,
your job is.
please answer the question I asked you. What is wrong if there are 100 meetings in 50 different cities across the country? If this is going to help give a fillip to brand India and tourism in India, particularly after, the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war and the economic slowdown, why not celebrate the G20? What's wrong with that? Why not make an event out of it? Yes.
We are celebrating the G20. Politics, diplomacy, international diplomacy, the fact that we are leaders of the world, we are not new to this. I mean, the standards were set much before this government came into power, as much as the Prime Minister would like to deny it, as he did in Bali when he said, well, he completely blanked out history before 2014. He said it. So, if you turn everything into something deeply political, we are
Okay.
critiquing the politics of turning this into political.
Okay, let me
There is
ask
nothing about
Ambassador
the
Vishnu
G20.
Prakash, as a former diplomat, I know, countries and cities that win the bid to host, let's say, the Olympics or the Asian Games or the Commonwealth Games. That's a huge deal. I mean, we've seen from, Beijing to London, Tokyo recently, all, converting that into a great opportunity for the city and for that country, right? Why not make the same of G20? Or what Mr. Ramesh's point is, unlike, let's say, sporting events, G20 would happen by cycle. Every member will get to host it at some point or the other. So India hosting the G20 was only inevitable. It was only a matter of time.
Zaka, good evening. The government has never said that it is not rotational. The government has never said that previous governments have not done it, but they are doing that. Of course, it is rotational. Of course, this is India's coming out party. Of course, it is the biggest national event or the biggest international grouping that India is going to cheer since independence. The world's eyes will be on India for 1 year, and what is being planned is to showcase the best of India. What is wrong with that?
Okay.
Uh, you know, this is a major national event and the event has to be managed. So at a philosophical level, yes, you need an exceptional event manager to handle such an event, and meticulous preparations are being made. One big difference, Zaka, is that G20 and summits like this used to be elitist. In India, it has been made into a people's festival, a national festival,
Mm.
by popular involvement. Now, the world is full of detractors. Now we need to show what we are capable of, our cultural heritage, our strides, economic strides that we have taken, and make the best of opportunity.
Okay.
Other countries may not have uh, showcased it the way we have. Why should we not do that? I
Uh,
fail to understand
okay.
what are we taking exception to.
Aarti Tikku, how does the hosting of the G20 help change or reposition India's place in the world? Because the problems that we are facing externally or internally for that matter, externally, the situation with China will continue the way it is. There isn't much love lost with Pakistan. Yes, the Quad is improving and increasing engagement in the Indo-Pacific. But even with the United States, there are differences. The issue is, how does the hosting of a G20 change the profile of a country or better its external environment and its external troubles, as it were?
Zaka, well, whether we like it or not, whether the opposition accepts it or not, but the fact is that G20 presidency coming to India at a juncture when India is in a very enviable position in the entire world. First of all, the kind of vaccination program we did after the coronavirus pandemic, that itself established India's capacity to deal with crisis. I think that is mind-boggling. That is something that the world has recognized, the WHO has recognized, the West has recognized, which was struggling during the pandemic. Then number 2 point is Europe is going through a crisis because of the war in Ukraine. And again, India enjoys a fantastic position diplomatically, strategically, because the West as well as Russia, we are seeing China, everybody is seeking partnership with India. So that, that credit obviously will go to Prime Minister Modi's deft diplomacy, his strategic moves that he made in the last few years. You cannot take away all those, accomplishments from the man, from the leader of the country. You may, do all kinds of politics, but at the end of the day, it is Article 370's nullification when the West, if you remember, the liberal democracies in the West were at India's throat. They were bashing against India in the last 8 years. Washington Post, New York Times, they've been calling India a fascistic country and Hindutva fascistic country. But at the end of the day, the 20 largest economies, the 20 most powerful countries of the world will be coming to India, and this is a great opportunity for us to showcase the development that has happened not only in 75 years, but in during Prime Minister Modi's under Prime Minister Modi's leadership.
Let me ask Dheeraj Sharma, one of the problems, and we saw this in the recently concluded G20 in Bali, the joint statement almost did not happen, which would of course embarrass the host, it would have embarrassed the other countries there, and that was primarily because of the Russia-Ukraine war. You saw the tensions when the Russian foreign minister was there. He left right after the first day. And if this war does not get over in the next 9 months before India hosts the next G20, doesn't India risk being sucked into this conflict where it's essentially NATO on the one side and Russia on the other, and India has good relations with both, but unfortunately we'll have no choice but to get sucked into this whole thing like Indonesia was, and the joint statement, like I said, almost did not happen till the very last minute.
Thank you, Zaka. I think the winter is around the corner, and negotiations and reconciliations also come around the winter time in Europe. So you would see, that all these things will come to a particular standstill. See, the situation in Indonesia was different. Russia is a very powerful country, very big country. It needs face saving. And the opportunity of face saving was not really offered at that point in time. It was largely a joint statement, which was sort of coming in a not so very vociferous or not so very balanced manner. But as we stand today, India's got a chance. Next several months, India will play a very, very important role. Next century belongs to Indian wisdom, I must tell you. And there was a lot of discussion that I could hear on this being taken away as a credit to the current prime minister. Now, is the current prime minister lucky? Yes, he is very lucky. These opportunities are coming at a time when he's the prime minister of the country. But at the same time, we've witnessed some of the biggest crises hitting the world during the regime of the current prime minister. These are all opportunities. And I think situational leadership, as we call it in management domain, will play a very, very important role. When positions are thrust upon you, not necessarily have come your way directly or indirectly as a result of your direct or indirect effort, but positions are there. Prime Minister and the current government will have a significant role. One, because you would realize that 75% of the global resources are consumed by G20 nations. 57 to 67% of the world GDP comes from these. 80% of the gross world product comes from these nations. So India, being the president of G20, is a very, very important task as in date. We've done some analysis here of all the G20 nations. Barring 3 nations, there is nobody showing positive growth, and India is amongst those 3. So from economic standpoint, from diplomacy standpoint, I think this is going to be a significantly
Okay.
very important
Let,
role for India, and
I,
India will stand to benefit. I'm telling you,
I'll take
even if
one of the
it's
points
by
that Professor Sharma made, and I think it's valid. Leadership is not just, about there is also situational leadership. If events are thrust on you that are beyond your control, the way you respond to it is a very important factor. And I think the pandemic is a great example of that. But I want to go back to Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, the question that's being asked again is this. The big event that could likely shape, the next 7-8 months, and we're already seeing sort of visible traces of this in the Western world, is what many are calling the coming recession. We're seeing that happen with the tech companies in the US. We're seeing that in the UK and other countries in Europe. My point is, if the Western world is going to go through a recession, of course, India is far away from a recession, but the knock-on effect will affect India as well. Will that become the dominant theme of India's G20 and India's G20 year?
Zaka, I think that's an excellent question. And, it's completely up my alley. So I'll just say this to you. A day back, we had the Q2 FY23 GDP numbers coming in, and India grew at 6.3%. And people said, oh, this is a come down from the 13.5% that we had in the first quarter of the current financial year. My simple point is this: first half, India's GDP stands at 9.9%. Assuming a worst case scenario of 4% in the second half, which is what the RBI has projected, India will still end up with a 6.95% GDP growth for the full year of the current financial year. And if, God willing, we do 4.5% in the second half, India will actually end up with a GDP growth of 7.2% in financial year 2020-23, which I think is excellent, given that for 2 quarters in a row, you saw the US seeing negative GDP growth. You had UK seeing a negative GDP growth of 0.6% last quarter. Germany is in the throes of recession. The limited point I'm trying to make here is that, India, in a sense, is decoupled. And, while this talk of globalization is something I've always endorsed, I think our huge middle class market, which is yet to be completely tapped, is what is our strength. And at the current rate at which, say, I'll just give you a small example for naysayers. If you look at the numbers of Maruti Suzuki sells about 1.6 to 1.7 lakh units a month, which means that it is selling almost 4 to 5 cars every single minute. Now, that does not happen in an economy which is likely to head into a recession.
Sure.
So while the opposition can browbeat about an impending recession in India, India is going to be one of the few countries which will buck the trend and will continue to grow at 7%. Conservatively speaking, if we actually manage to up the ante a little bit, if government spending picks up, private capex cycle moves up further, you could actually see 8% in the next 18 months or so.
So, Dr. Anshula Vijit, I keep coming back to this. The fact that India is hosting the G20, and, we had Professor Sharma and others talk about this, almost 70% of the world's GDP, 60 to 70% of the world's GDP is controlled by these 20 countries, and India is hosting the G20 summit. Why not celebrate that? Why not, use that as an opportunity to re-kickstart? Life as we know it has changed over the last 3 years because of the pandemic and the war and so on. But to get back to a semblance of normalcy, why not use the G20?
No, we are delighted. We are not delighted at the politicization of the G20 that this government is relentless about, and the Prime Minister in particular, a kind of self-promotion that we've seen all the time, at every occasion, at every bipartisan occasion. And now, since we're talking about statistics, let me throw a few. Did you know that among all G20 countries, our per capita GDP is actually the lowest? We're talking about the pandemic. First of all, the Prime Minister never ordered the vaccines, which led to the deaths of countless lives. I don't know what we're bragging on about, right? You never were prepared for the second wave. We all know what happened during those pandemic years and how much hardship. Madam, allow me to speak. I heard you very patiently. Let me bust some of those numbers. Let me just.
Okay, Sanju Verma, please allow him to make his point, please. Yeah.
Yeah, what the inflation has been desperately trying to control inflation, which is above the RBI target of 4%. No, look, madam, I heard you very patiently.
inflation in 18 months.
Sanjuji,
We
let
have
him
the
make his
largest
point. I'll come
vaccine
back to you.
volume.
I'll come back to you. Let him make his point. I'll come back to you. Anshul Avijit on screen,
You are
please. Thank you.
clueless about numbers.
Yeah.
You are clueless about numbers.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
Anshul.
madam. Let me just get my numbers. Please listen to me. What about your inflation numbers? Can you deny that the target of the RBI is 4% and inflation has been consistently high on month? What about that number? You're just floating high frequency data. Your per capita GDP is the lowest among all all G20 countries. Among all G20 countries, by the way, your fiscal stimulus during the pandemic was the lowest. It was about 2%. Right. So this is comparison to the G20. The Prime Minister keeps saying, and he made this speech in Bali that, I made about 3 crore houses, and that is the population of Australia. Does he know that the GDP per capita of Australia is $60,000? It's about, God knows how many times more than India. So these comparisons, of course.
No. One second. Despite all of that, Anshul Avijit, despite all of that, Dr. Anshul Avijit, despite all of that, if India, one second, if India today finds itself in a position where, the Prime Minister is sitting next to Vladimir Putin and telling him this is not the era of war, surely that's got to count for something. You tell me how many other world leaders can and have said that in the last 9 months since this war began?
Look, Zaka, international diplomacy is aside. We have a diplomatic position on Ukraine, on Russia. We expect that to unfold. But, I come back to the point again and again. It begins with the logo. I don't know why you're trying to deny that. It begins with the logo. It begins with the speeches that are said ceaselessly all the time, which is politicization, which is promotion. Of course, we're delighted. This is not new to us hosting, international summits with aplomb. We've done it since 1983.
All right, Sanju Verma respond, and then I'll go to the other three guests and I'll close out the debate after that. Sanju Verma, respond, please. Yeah.
Zaka, what I find extremely amusing is the fact that the moment we start talking of GDP, the Congress. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on. We can hear you. Go on.
I didn't hear, madam. And I'm not interrupting you either.
Okay, Zaka.
You can say without any.
Okay, hold your horses, Zaka. Can I please make my point?
Yeah, I'm listening. Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes. The amusing bit is that the moment we start talking about GDP, the Congress comes in with the per capita income. The per capita income of Iceland is higher than India. The per capita income of Iran is higher than India. The per capita income of Brunei is higher than India. Please keep quiet. Zaka, this is not done.
Anshul, extend her the same courtesy, please. Anshul, please. Let her make a point. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Only Sanju Verma, please.
My apologies, madam.
I refuse to speak.
No, go.
I want to be, yes. The per capita income of Iceland, the per capita income of Iran, the per capita income of Brunei, the per capita income of perhaps Vietnam is higher than India. So how does it matter? The hard truth is this. Today the world is in the throes of an incoming recession. India grew at 8.7% last year. India will likely grow at 7% this year. And Zaka, when it comes to inflation, be it the US, the UK, the Eurozone, every country is seeing inflation at 9%, 10%, what have you. If you look at the cumulative inflation of the last 8 years under the Modi government, it is 4.95%. And in the US, I remember at the peak of COVID wave, it was having shortage of, baby food. There are riots in France because of lack of fuel. Gas stations in UK were running dry. We ran the world's largest vaccination drive. We ran the world's largest food security program. We have the world's largest financial inclusion program called the Jan Dhan Yojana. We have the world's largest healthcare program called Ayushman.
All right, you've made all of those points. Let me now close out with the experts on the panel. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, I think one of the panelists made a very good point that increasingly geopolitics is getting polarized. It's reflecting, domestic politics across countries, whether it's in the US, here in India, or wherever else. You have now the US and the NATO camp, and then you have the Russia and China camp. Does India risk falling between camps, or will it get to a situation where India will have no choice because the geopolitics is so polarized between these two camps? We're basically going back to what looks like some kind of a Cold War geopolitics.
Well, that is not of our choosing, and that's a reality that we are facing. We have taken that on board. What India is planning to do is to try and be a consensus builder, try to be a peacemaker, try to bring together parties and narrow differences and to refocus the world attention on pressing issues like food security, energy security, sustainable growth, health crisis, digital transformation, and so on and so forth. Now, whether we will succeed, I do not know. But what I know is that it would not be for want of trying.
Okay.
The meticulous preparations are being made, every effort is being put in, and frankly, today, yes, India's per capita income is the lowest among G20 countries. Yes, we have lots of challenges, but we also have a lot of success stories. So, what India is doing is an open book, and we have the ability to stand for issues, have the courage of conviction to chart out an independent course, and that is something the world respects.
Okay.
So
Aarti,
we will do our very best. That is what I'm assured of.
Aarti Tikku, you know, one of the criticisms against the G20 and many such multilateral fora is it descends into a bit of a talk shop. You talk about lofty things like climate change and sustainable development, when actually the most pressing thing right now is the war. And no country in the world seems to be in a position to put an end to that war. So again, does it come back to how can G20, India's presidency be more than just a talk shop?
Well, as I said earlier, Zakat, that India is in a very, very interesting position across the world today, especially as a key player who can build consensus, who can also be a peacemaker. If you remember, Prime Minister Modi tried to bridge the gap between Russia and the West on the Ukraine war. And I think the slogan which really captures the sentiment, as the ambassador was also saying, Prime Minister's slogan, which said one earth, one family and one future. I think the whole philosophy of India and Prime Minister Modi's philosophy as well, that it has to be, the world has to coexist and all heads have to come together and they have to it is time for peace and not for war. And I think that will be the underpinning of India's presidency of the G20.
I'll give Professor Sharma the final word. I'm really out of time. Professor Sharma, 30 seconds. How will India's presidency of G20 be defined as a success or not so much of a success? What will be the yardstick as far as you are concerned?
I think two very important things. One, I think the India will play a very important mediator. Today, there's a statement from President Biden welcoming India's presidency and also supporting India's presidency. And also there is a simultaneous statement from the Foreign Minister of Russia, which demonstrates that India will play a very, very important role. And there is a tribute to Indian diplomacy over the years, which has been able to build such strength in solving this very, very important problem which is going on. Second, what you mentioned, I think we're neglecting that part. Tourism continues to be the backbone of several countries, including India. You know, we used to be in 2019 about $31 billion of tourism. Today, those numbers, because of the COVID situations, are down. I think G20 will provide an impetus to our economy, will give a shot in the arm to various tourist sectors within India, and also recognize us as the destination. I think destination branding for India will be very, very important.
We'll leave it at that. I agree with the final point that Professor Sharma made, and I think it's an absolutely valid one. I think Brand India, the Incredible India campaign from back from the 90s and early 2000s, it did a huge amount for changing the perception of India, India being not just an investment-friendly destination, but also a tourism-friendly destination. So both of these things will be top of the map again when India gets to host the G20 next year. So thank you very much to all our guests joining us on this talking point. I'm going to take a quick break here on the program. When we come back, we'll shift focus to domestic politics, and just ahead of the MCD polls, which are due later this weekend, there is a big controversy around the 1984 anti-Sikh riots accused Jagdish Tytler, who was campaigning today for the Congress. The Congress says it's been 35 years. No court of law has found him guilty. How long will this Damocles sword hang over his head? That debate right on the other side of this break.
Legal Institute gave no such report. I've read that report. I know the forensic department's head, and I've spoken to him also. They all said it was clearly a case of murder. And in fact, the FIR was registered only after the All India Medical Institute gave this kind of a thing. This is false. Yes, his son, her son rather,
Yeah.
he ditched her mother. That's a different matter. That can be investigated separately. Why he did that when he was not even in the scene? How could he say that it is not murder sitting in Dubai? So I think there was a lot of attempts to save Shashi Tharoor. I hope now the justice will be dealt for Sunanda Pushkar.
Okay. Dr. Swami, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see how the courts take up this matter and whether they find grounds for the appeal. First go across to the man who started this all, basis whose complaint this whole case was registered against Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, former Member of Parliament of the BJP, is now joining us. Dr. Swamy, thank you very much for speaking with us. First things first, like I said, it started with your moving the Delhi police and asking them for a probe into Shashi Tharoor's late wife's death. It took 7 years for the discharge case against Tharoor to happen in the first place, and earlier last year, the Delhi court had discharged him, saying that there is want of evidence. Now, 15 months later, the Delhi police have approached the court again. Many are saying they've dug up this case again. What is exactly the end game here? Because what new has the police found in terms of the last 15 months to warrant going back to the court asking for an appeal against the discharge?
Well, the Delhi police has gone in appeal against the order in the lower court, and but the question is right. You have asked a correct question. Why did they say it takes so long to wake up to after having gone to the upper court and filed an appeal against the lower court's orders? Why did you take so long to go back and start the proceedings?
Now, back when the lower court had discharged Mr. Tharoor from the trial of the death of his late wife, the court had cited, and I quote, an absence of specific allegations and sufficient material to warrant that he was in any kind of conspiracy to eliminate his wife. So my question is, what has changed between then and now, between the discharge that happened a year and a half ago and the need to go back to the High Court now and ask for an appeal against that discharge?
Well, I don't. Then it must mean that Delhi police didn't present what should have been presented. One was the autopsy report of the All India Medical Institute, which showed lots of marks on her body, an injection hole in her arm, which showed that perhaps she was also given a poison needle, and she had put up a fight. It was also very clear. What was the reason? Why was she in a hotel, 5-7-star hotel? How could this happen in what appears to be 11 o'clock in the morning?
But Dr. Swamy, tell me this. You talked about the AIIMS autopsy board, or even the statement that was given by Sunanda Pushkar's son. In none of this, was there any kind of material evidence that her death be treated as some kind of a homicide? So again, I keep going back to this. If neither the autopsy is saying this, nor her closest family members are alleging homicide, then on what basis is the Delhi police trying to revisit this case, or at least appealing to revisit this case?
All India Medical Institute, they gave no such report. I've read that report. I know the forensic department's head, and I've spoken to him also. They all said it was clearly a case of murder. And in fact, the FIR was registered only after the All India Medical Institute gave this kind of a thing. This is false. Yes, his son, her son rather,
Yeah.
he ditched her mother. That's a different matter. That can be investigated separately. Why he did that when he was not even in the scene? How could he say that it is not murder sitting in Dubai? So.
There is fresh controversy around Congress leader Jagdish Tytler, one of the accused in the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. Mr. Tytler has been campaigning for Congress candidates in the upcoming MCD elections. He says no court of law has found him guilty. Neither has any investigating agency managed to provide evidence of his involvement in the anti-Sikh riots. But almost all of these so-called clean chits that were given were when the Congress was in power. The last one was in 2015 when the court castigated the prosecution for doing a shoddy job. The question remains, why is the Congress party so dependent on Mr. Tytler, so much so that they're now using him for the MCD election?
Congress ka haath is with a riot accused. That's Jagdish Tytler, accused in the 1984 anti-Sikh massacre, busy campaigning for Congress ahead of the upcoming MCD elections. This comes weeks after the party named Tytler as a member of their election committee ahead of the municipal polls.
यही कहूंगा कि अगर जिसने 84 के दंगों में जिसका सबसे बड़ा हाथ रहा, ऐसे चेहरों को लेकर भी आज कांग्रेस जा रही है, तो हम तो जनता को बताते हैं कि एसआईटी का गठन भी 84 के दंगों पर किया तो मोदी सरकार ने किया और सिखों को न्याय दिलाने का काम किया.
It's not the first time that Congress has given a platform to Tytler. In 2019, Jagdish Tytler got a front row seat at a Delhi Congress event. In 2021, he was made a permanent invitee to Delhi Congress Committee. And just a few weeks ago, Tytler was appointed as a member of Congress's MCD election committee.
कांग्रेस दिल्ली को ये संदेश देने की कोशिश कर रही है कि अगर कांग्रेस को लोगों ने वोट नहीं डाली तो फिर जगदीश टाइटलर जैसे दरिंदों को लाएगी और दिल्ली में कत्लेआम कराएगी.
Tytler has been accused of leading mobs against Sikhs in the riots that followed then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's assassination by her Sikh bodyguards in 1984. 3,000 Sikhs were killed in Delhi in the violence. So why does Congress continue to defend Jagdish Tytler?
All right, on the talking point this evening, RP Singh of the BJP is joining us. Dolly Sharma of the Congress party will be joining us as well. Atmaj Singh Lubana is a 1984 riots victim. Siddharth Sharma, spokesperson of AAP, also joining us. RP Singh, let me start with you first. Mr. Tytler's claim, and this has been echoed by other Congress leaders as well, is that it's been 35 years since the riots. No court of inquiry, no commission of inquiry, no investigating agency has found anything against Mr. Tytler. Why are you continuing to hold him guilty?
Well, case is not closed still. The court has reprimanded CBI for the shoddy investigation when it was the UPA-led regime. And then there are more evidence which has come now. Mr. Atmaj Singh Lubana will tell you that in detail, that he himself is witness to the cases now of 84. But there is more evidence which I want to show you. This is the book of GBS Sidhu Khalistan Conspiracy. In this he mentioned, let me just go to the page, he mentioned on page number 219 about detail about how there was a team which was led by Mr. Sanjay Gandhi and then by Rajiv Gandhi, and Mr. Tytler was part of that team which planned this complete 84 massacre. Not only that, he executed it. He was part of the person who planned the conspiracy. Had Mrs. Gandhi not been killed, even then something of this sort would have happened.
Okay.
They wanted to paint the most give me a second, most nationalist minority as the demon to garner the majority vote. This is not I am saying, this is GPS Sidhu's book, The Khalis Khan Conspiracy, which has not been challenged by any Congress leader, neither defamation case has been filed by any Congress leader against this. But that point aside, there is video on record, which there is a sting operation on record, where Mr. Tytler is saying that I took Mr. Gandhi along with me around the CP to show him how the things have been executed. So this is the fact, and then it's matter of time, because they were in power, they misused the power to get exonerated, but it's matter of time. Sajjan Kumar.
Okay, let me ask Dolly Sharma of the Congress Party. Dolly Sharma, the Nanavati Commission had hinted to Mr. Tytler's role. In 2015, when this case got last dismissed, the Sessions Court at that time had completely taken the CBI to task, saying that they have done a shoddy job of the investigation. The point is that there is reported evidence, reporters who covered it, there is evidence from people like Mr. Lubana and other victims, thousands of them, that Mr. Tytler, Mr. Sajjan Kumar, HKL Bhagat were all leading the mobs on the night after Indira Gandhi's assassination. Why does the Congress Party still need Mr. Tytler, who's in his 80s, to campaign for the MCD elections?
Have you heard Mr. Amit Shah saying few days ago in Gujarat कि हमने सबक सिखा दिया उनको और गुजरात में फिर वापस वो कभी नहीं हुआ? हमारे गृह मंत्री तड़ी पार रहे हैं. तड़ी पार का मतलब होता है कि जिसको the person who cannot live in the society.
आपने सिखों को सबक सिखाया था. आपने सिखों को सबक सिखाया था. यही कहा था राजीव गांधी ने, जब बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती हिलती है. यही कहा था ना राजीव गांधी ने, जब बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती हिलती है. आपने सिखों को सबक सिखाया था अपने इलेक्शन जीतने के लिए. आपने पूरा प्री प्लान किया. आपने
आरपी साहब, I'll come back to you. उनको बात तो रखने दीजिए. आरपी सिंह साहब, उनको बात रखने दीजिए. आपके पास उसके बाद आऊंगा. ओनली डॉली शर्मा ऑन स्क्रीन. डॉली शर्मा. यस जी बोलिए.
ऐसे कौन डिबेट कर पाएगा?
जी बोलिए.
जब वो बोले तो मैं नहीं बोली.
बोलिए, सुन रहे हैं, बोलिए.
आई एम सिंपली मेकिंग दिस पॉइंट कि सीबीआई ने भी उनको, आपने खुद ही बताया कि क्या जजमेंट दिया. उससे पहले भी उनको जो जजमेंट दिया वो सबको पता है. और लगातार ये जो आज भाजपा इस बात पर सवाल उठा रही है, दे मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड कि खुद गृह मंत्री तड़ी पार रहे हैं. तड़ी पार का मतलब होता है द पर्सन हु कैन नॉट लिव इन द सोसाइटी, एंड दे आर अगेन रेजिंग क्वेश्चंस ऑन द केसेस व्हिच हैज हैपेंड. खत्म हो गई जो बातें.
नहीं, अगर आप कह रही हैं, नहीं डॉली शर्मा, अगर आप कह रही हैं कि नो कोर्ट हैज फाउंड हिम गिल्टी, तो आपकी उस लॉजिक से, यू नो, अमित शाह हैज आल्सो बीन एग्जॉनरेटेड बाय एवरी कोर्ट दैट वेंट इनटू ऑल द केसेस अगेंस्ट हिम.
दिस इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग.
तो वो लॉजिक बैठता नहीं है ना आपका जो लॉजिक है.
दिस इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. व्हाई बीजेपी इज रेजिंग दिस अगेन एंड अगेन देन?
No, my point is, court of law is one thing. एक सेकंड, मैडम सुन लीजिए, सवाल सुन लीजिए. Court of law is one thing. Shoddy investigation is something else. Evidence on the ground of victims, reporters, सब लोगों ने देखा है. It's well documented that Mr. Tytler, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Bhagat were all there on ground the night after Indira Gandhi's assassination, going rounds from one place to another. ये मतलब this is part of recorded history of Delhi.
Sir, everybody has seen what Amit Shah ji was quoting 2-3 days ago in Gujarat also.
नहीं तो उसका और इसका क्या लेना देना है, ये बताइए. उसका और इसका क्या लेना देना है?
You must have heard of the statement. You must have heard of the same statement.
No, I'm asking you, what is the connection between that and Congress Party using Jagdish Tytler? Connection क्या है दोनों चीजों के?
कभी नहीं हुआ. अगर आप उनको क्लीन चिट देते हैं तो किसी को, अगर सीबीआई बोल रही है, सब बोल रहे हैं, आप उसमें इस तरीके की बातें कर रहे हैं, तो या तो फिर वहां पर इस तरीके की बायसनेस क्यों आती है? अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट, सीबीआई का जजमेंट अगर और केसेस में कुछ और कहता है, उनको बाइज्जत बरी कर देता है, तो इधर क्यों नहीं करता?
आत्म सिंह लुबाना है हमारे साथ, वो एक 1984 राइट विक्टिम है, वो बताएंगे आपको. लुबाना जी, ये बताइए, कांग्रेस पार्टी के कहना ये है कि देखिए, ना कोई कोर्ट ने उनको दोषी करार किया है, ना कोई इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग एजेंसी कोई सबूत ला पाई, तो फिर किस चीज़ पे, और 30-35 साल हो गए, किस चीज़ के आधार पर, किस एविडेंस के आधार पर आप अभी भी जगदीश टाइटलर को दोषी मान रहे हैं। लुबाना जी।
मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि जगदीश टाइटलर की और सज्जन कुमार की टिकट इन्होंने क्यों काटी थी। इनको आप मेरे को इस बात का बता देंगे कि जब पंजाब के लोगों ने और दिल्ली के सिखों ने और पंजाब के सिखों ने और पूरे वर्ल्ड के अंदर सिखों ने जब कांग्रेस को क्रिटिसाइज किया था, तब जाके सोनिया गांधी ने जगदीश टाइटलर और सज्जन कुमार की दिल्ली में लोकसभा चुनावों में टिकटें काटी थी। ये मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ ना
जी।
इसका आपके पास कोई जवाब है? दूसरी बात, टाइटलर का केस, टाइटलर ने कहा था, अभिषेक वर्मा जो हैं इसमें मुख्य गवाह हैं, टाइटलर के केस में अभी भी रोज एवेन्यू कोर्ट में केस चल रहा है, उसमें 2 विटनेसेस हैं और कोर्ट ने पिछले 1 साल से 164 के बयान दर्ज करने का ऑर्डर किया हुआ है और उसमें सज्जन टाइटलर को के खिलाफ उनके बयान दर्ज कराने थे। 164 की स्टेटमेंट कोर्ट में दर्ज होनी थी। जब वो कोर्ट में केस चल रहा है तभी तो दर्ज है। अभी नेक्स्ट डेट दिसंबर की ही है, इसी महीने की ही है, 23 दिसंबर की
जी।
तो ये जो है आप कह रहे हो कि कोर्ट केस नहीं चला, क्लीन चिट दे दी। इन्होंने क्या किया, दोनों गवाहों को परचेज करके उनके सारे परिवार को यहाँ से दिल्ली से इंडिया से बुला के अमेरिका भेज दिया। ये तो काम टाइटलर करता है। और अब जो 2 विटनेस है वो बुज़ुर्ग हैं, हम बार बार उनको कह रहे हैं ये जानबूझ के कोर्टों में इस केस को डिले करने के लिए अपील डाल लेते हैं, उनका डिसीजन आता नहीं है। वो कोर्ट जो ट्रायल केस है वो चलता नहीं है। वो ये चाहते हैं कि जिनकी विटनेस की उस टाइम 30 साल 35 साल की उम्र थी, अगर 40 साल इनको प्लस करें तो 40 और 40 80 साल हो जाते हैं
जी।
अगर 30 साल थी तो 70 साल हो जाते हैं उनके। तो वो ये चाहते हैं इनके कोर्ट में स्टेटमेंट ही ना होने दो। हम बार बार कोशिश करते हैं, हमने मोदी जी से कहा और अमित शाह जी से कहा कि स्पेशल कोर्ट बना दो जो डे टू डे सुनवाई करे और उसमें टाइटलर का केस होना चाहिए। जो विटनेसेस हैं उनकी गवाही ट्रायल में हो जानी चाहिए।
ओके।
अगर वो मर जाएंगे फिर क्या फ़ायदा होएगा उसका केस शुरू होना। ये इन्होंने जानबूझ के, टाइटलर ने बड़े बड़े वकील करके कोर्ट में अपील डाल के केस को डिले करने का इन्होंने बहाना बनाया।
ओके, सो ही इज बीन डिलेइंग ही इज यूजिंग डिलेइंग टैक्टिक्स। सिद्धार्थ शर्मा जी, ये बताइए, आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार है पिछले 7-8 साल से दिल्ली में, आपने क्या किया 1984 दंगों की जो विक्टिम्स है उनके लिए और उनके फैमिलीज के लिए, उनके लिए जस्टिस के लिए? आप क्यों नहीं कमीशन बैठाते हैं? व्हाई डोंट यू स्टार्ट अ फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्ट? आफ्टर ऑल इट हैपेंड इन दिल्ली और आप दिल्ली में सरकार में हैं।
Yeah, Zaka, the 1984 Sikh program was a macabre injury on Delhi. Everyone knows that. And to make its captain its star campaigner is adding insult to it. Mr. Rahul Gandhi doesn't find time to come to Delhi, do his Bharat Jodo Yatra, but he finds time for Mr. Jagdish Tytler to campaign in Delhi. The other thing that the victim, Lubna ji has very clearly given out is that the BJP also cannot absolve itself since the police is with it and it has not prosecuted Mr. Jagdish Tytler as of now. Now, as far as your question of Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, everyone knows that law and order is not a state subject in Delhi. Aam Aadmi Party doesn't have it. At best, that we can do is provide some kind of relief to the victims. And we are trying our level best to do that. But here the point is not about relief, but justice. Justice has to be served by the governments which have police proposal. Unfortunately, in the last 38 years, BJP and Congress both have been in power in center, but they have not found it fit enough to put Mr. Jagdish Tytler behind bars, in spite of the court saying that
आरपी सिंह साहब,
his cases
पिछले 8 साल से आपकी सरकार है, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में, दिल्ली पुलिस आपके पास है, आप क्यों नहीं फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्ट शुरू करते हैं? व्हाई डोंट यू स्टार्ट अ कमीशन ऑफ इंक्वायरी एंड वंस एंड फॉर ऑल पुट एन एंड टू दिस? मतलब अभी तो 30-40 साल हो गए हैं इसके बाद।
Zaka, I'm shocked. The Aam Aadmi Party
everyone-
analysts never gave answer.
One second, RP Singh, yeah.
Zaka,
No, RP Singh, yeah. Ji.
He didn't,
सर मैं आपको
sir,
एक बात
he
बताना
didn't
चाहता
answer your
हूं।
question. इन्होंने
नहीं, बोलिए। लुबना जी, मैं आ रहा हूं आपके पास। RP Singh फर्स्ट, या।
तो वो एसआईटी बनाने का प्रॉमिस किया था केजरीवाल साहब ने कि मैं एसआईटी बनाऊंगा, मैं उसमें जो लोग दोषी हैं उनको सजा दिलाऊंगा। दिस वाज द प्रॉमिस ही मेड। वो एसआईटी बनी नहीं आज तक, ना बनेगी, क्योंकि कांग्रेस के समर्थन से सरकार बनाई थी पहली बार इन्होंने, और तब ये लेन देन हुआ था। उस दैट वाज पार्ट ऑफ दैट फॉर्मेशन ऑफ गवर्नमेंट इन दिल्ली कि नहीं, वी विल नॉट, विल सीक योर सपोर्ट बट एंड यू सपोर्ट अस एंड विल एक्सोनरेट यू इनटू ऑल दिस फ्रॉम ऑल दिस केसेस, and in that SIT was quashed. No SIT was made, sorry. So that point aside, but coming to the issue, I am telling you today, Sir Zaka, please check on the court details. I am the one who has followed up each and every date of Sajjan Kumar, each and every date of Dhingra Committee Commission. I am the one of the interveners as the National Secretary of the BJP in 1984 case also of the Dhingra Committee, where I am following up for the action taken report of the on Dhingra Committee. But I am assuring you today, wait for another few months. I have to put a tweet today also that I am going to follow it up, ensure that what Mr. Atma Singh Lubana was telling, in December there is a date, we will ensure that all statements are recorded under Section 164, so that people who are still alive, their statements should be recorded, and then Mr. Tytler, news on Mr. Tytler's neck also will be tightened.
Okay. Lubana ji, बोलिए।
मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि इस केस के अंदर टाइटलर का जो ट्रायल केस चल रहा था पहले कड़कड़डूमा कोर्ट के अंदर जी, उस टाइम एक अभिषेक वर्मा जी हैं जो एक घोटाला किया था मनमोहन सिंह की सरकार के अंदर, डिफेंस डील में घोटाला किया था, उसमें वो अक्यूज भी हैं, और उन्होंने बताया, उन्होंने कोर्ट में एफिडेविट दिया कि मैं आपको सच बताना चाहता हूं, टाइटलर ने एक फार्म हाउस पे, हरियाणा में फार्म हाउस में मेरे साथ मिला था, और टाइटलर ने मेरे को बताया कि मनमोहन सिंह जी जो प्रधानमंत्री हैं उनसे बात हो गई है मेरी, और अब मेरे को क्लीन चिट मिलने वाली है। वो उनके प्रेशर से इन्होंने क्लीन चिट लेने की कोशिश की, लेकिन इन्होंने कहा कि एक ही विटनेस है, लेकिन इनको ये नहीं पता था कि एक के अलावा और भी विटनेसेस हैं। मैं खुद सज्जन टाइटलर के खिलाफ विटनेस हूँ, मेरा अभी तक इन्होंने बयान भी नहीं दर्ज किया। मैंने इसको खूब अच्छी तरह से टाइटलर को पुल बंगस गुरुद्वारे के बाहर इसको देखा था मैंने जी। तो ये बयान कोर्ट में अगर ट्रायल शुरू होगा तभी तो हम बयान दर्ज कराएंगे ना, कैसे कराएंगे? सीबीआई को हम बोलते हैं, सीबीआई को आम आदमी से किसी से झगड़ा हो जाए तो पहले वो पुलिस जो है पहले उनको अरेस्ट करती है, उसके बाद इन्वेस्टिगेशन करती है, लेकिन इसमें उल्टा काम इन्होंने किया है। पहले कहता हम इन्वेस्टिगेशन करेंगे फिर इसको अरेस्ट करेंगे। तो
कितने साल करेंगे इन्वेस्टिगेशन? अभी तो 40 साल हो गए, कितने और साल करेंगे इन्वेस्टिगेशन?
हाँ, अभी तक 40 साल हो गए, इनकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन पूरी नहीं है। पहले टाइटलर को जेल के अंदर भेजा जाए और फिर इन्वेस्टिगेशन करें। मैंने एफिडेविट दिया है एसआईटी को।
लेट मी गो बैक टू डॉली शर्मा।
कमीशन में एफिडेविट दिया है।
डॉली शर्मा, प्लीज रिस्पॉन्ड व्हाई there has been no action. Forget about action. Why this dependence on Jagdish Tytler? He is an aging leader. It's not like he has some great constituency or community vote or vote bank in Delhi. So why do you have to depend on him for the MCD polls? And secondly, I keep coming back to this, all the clean chits that he got, all the clean chits that Jagdish Tytler got from the CBI and from courts of law was when the Congress was in power.
2015 Congress was not in power, sir.
उस दिन कोर्ट ने क्या बोला है सीबीआई को, मैं पढ़ के सुनाऊं आपको?
जी.
Do you want me to read what the court said, the Sessions Court? It rejected the closure report. One second. It rejected the closure report, ordered an investigation into the role of Jagdish Tytler, and it has said that the CBI and the prosecuting agency did a shoddy job while trying to give a clean chit to Mr. Jagdish Tytler. Nanavati Commission had hinted the role of Mr. Jagdish Tytler, and yet successively CBI did nothing to bring prosecutable evidence against this gentleman. ये कोर्ट ने बोला है. The court has said this while rejecting the closure report.
From last 8 years, Congress is not in power. And BJP, who is blaming every time, should come out in open, help the people who are facing the problem, help who are saying that we have seen it from their own eyes. They should help them so that the clear judgment is made.
No, they don't want help, ma'am. They want justice.
I'm telling
justice
you,
कौन
on
देगा
the
उनको?
national television.
जस्टिस कौन देगा उनको? उनको इंसाफ चाहिए, मदद नहीं चाहिए उनको.
जिनको इंसाफ, मैंने आपको अभी भी बोला कि 8 साल से आप ब्लेम कर रहे कांग्रेस पावर में थी. 8 साल से कांग्रेस पावर में नहीं है. 8 साल से कांग्रेस पावर में नहीं है. अब जो भी कुछ बीजेपी कर सकती है या जो भी कुछ कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ करे वो करे, इंसाफ मिले.
आरपी सिंह साहब, इसका तो जवाब बनता है कि 8 साल से क्यों ये रुका पड़ा है. 8 साल से तो कांग्रेस की सरकार नहीं है, आपकी सरकार है. आप बताइए ना
सर. मैं इसका जवाब देता हूं.
एक सेकंड लुबाना जी, एक सेकंड. आरपी सिंह
सर
अच्छा, लेट आत्मा सिंह आंसर. नहीं जाकर लेट आत्मा सिंह.
अच्छा ठीक है, लुबाना जी बोलिए.
मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि जगदीश टाइटलर ने एक अननोन नाम से सुरेंद्र सिंह के बेटा और बहन के अकाउंट में 5 करोड़ रुपए डाल दिए, जो कि वो कनाडा में है अकाउंट. वो कनाडा सरकार ने उस अकाउंट को सीज किया हुआ है और उसके ऊपर प्रोसीडिंग कोर्ट के अंदर चल रही है. वो डिसीजन जो है भारत सरकार और कनाडा सरकार का आपस का सरकार का वो डिसीजन है. इनकी जो हमारा गृह मंत्रालय है उसके साथ वार्तालाप वो कर रहे हैं. वो पैसा उन हमारे जो सुरेंद्र सिंह विटनेस थे मेन टाइटलर के खिलाफ, उसका बेटा और उसकी बहन के अकाउंट में कैसे आया 5 करोड़, किसने दिया?
नहीं, वो बात
जिसने भी डाला है
वो बात सही हो सकती है. मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रहा हूं लुबाना जी कि इस केस में जहां 2-3 हजार सिखों को मारा गया, एक विटनेस से ज्यादा तो होगा ही.
हाँ, मेरे ख्याल 2 विटनेस अभी और भी है ना, उनकी ट्रायल नहीं शुरू कर रहे. हम क्या करें, हम बताओ.
तो उनका स्टेटमेंट क्यों रिकॉर्ड नहीं हो रहा है? उनका स्टेटमेंट रिकॉर्ड क्यों नहीं हो रहा है?
जब तक कनाडा गवर्नमेंट इसकी क्लियरेंस नहीं देती 5 करोड़ किसने जमा कराया, बिल्कुल क्लियर तस्वीर नहीं होती. अभिषेक वर्मा का लाइव डिटेक्टिव टेस्ट हो चुका है इसमें. उसने जो आरोप टाइटलर के ऊपर लगाए थे उसका लाइव डिटेक्टिव टेस्ट कोर्ट ने करवा लिया है. वो भी अभी इन्होंने सार्वजनिक नहीं किया, उसको सीक्रेट रखा हुआ है.
Okay, we'll leave it there. RP Singh, Siddharth Sharma, Dolly Sharma and Atma Singh Lubana.
भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की थीम वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर में पूर्ण रूप से समाहित है.
The G20 Presidency offers an opportunity to share our story with others, particularly those